Today, we're answering the question, does prayer actually work? And we're going to be taking a look at prayer in relation to metaphysics, in relation to science, in relation to the occult, magic, and the esoteric. And of course, we'll be examining this all with logic and reason. This is a really important video. Even if you might not necessarily be interested in prayer, we're going to be talking a lot about the idea of altering reality according to one's will, and a lot of related topics. Now, look, I grew up in a strict Christian household. I prayed probably at least 5 times a day, and this is something that I am very familiar with. And not only are we going to be taking a look at, does prayer actually work, but we're going to be looking at the benefits and the dangers of these different practices, and ultimately how one, if one can, most effectively transform reality according to one's will. Because in our system, this is what is known as will forming. So let's start. Now, before I begin, I want to say real quick, if you watched my last video I did on the secret of the pyramids, there was some errors. YouTube had some errors on it and the audio was messed up. It's working now. It's fine. So if you want to watch that video, go watch it again. It's a good one. And the audio is all fine. The problem is fixed now. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Morgue. I've devoted my life to transforming consciousness and studying all these hidden information to be able to get you the tools that you need to understand reality lucidly and consciously. Remember, there's a lot of scammers out there in the comments, so look out for people saying that, pretending to be me, saying to join my WhatsApp, join my Telegram. That's not me. Be on the lookout for that. Also, there's a lot of people in groups out there that don't like what I'm doing, don't like what we're doing. And so they're spreading a lot of disinformation and misinformation about me and us. So just be on the lookout for that. Don't fall for the BS. Use your mind, use reason. All right, here we go. Does prayer actually work? Now, like I said, I grew up in a Christian household. I was praying 5 times a day at least. I was heavily indoctrinated. And one of the things that was frustrating to me is that prayer did not seem to work. And I was always very skeptical about it. And, things like that started to build up. Prayer not working, not having this grand experience with the Holy Spirit. And the biggest thing was all the contradictions and atrocities and horrible, just disturbing things in the Bible. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're asking, does prayer work? Because for a lot of people would say that it does. I took a poll before we started. 75% of people said that it does work. 25% of people said that it doesn't, roughly. Now, so does it work or doesn't it? We're going to see that, interestingly, it does in a very certain way. And things like prayer and things like magic ritual are actually very much connected and related, but approach it from opposite ends of the spectrum. And one could even say, I saw an article titled, "Prayer is Weak Magic." And what does that mean? So a lot of people will think that both prayer and magic is a bunch of BS. And in a certain way it is, but in a certain way it isn't. It depends on how you understand it, how you use it, how you interpret it. So remember, we're going to look at everything through logic and reason. So whether you 100% believe in the power of prayer or you're a total skeptic and you think it's a bunch of BS, this has information that you're going to be able to benefit from. Very important. So let's at first, right, before we jump into its connection with magic and the occult, which is extremely important, let's take a look at it from a scientific point of view. So from the scientific point of view, prayer induces or results in the placebo effect. So what is the placebo effect? I think most of you are familiar with what it is, but just in case there are some people out there who aren't, I'll give a definition of what the placebo effect is. In essence, the placebo effect is the fact that when you believe in something, you can actually have certain results occur. So they do this a lot in scientific studies. And let me read to you a definition of the placebo effect just so you guys can get an idea. This comes from a website called Better Health. And it says a placebo is any treatment that has no active properties, such as a sugar pill. There are many clinical trials where a person has taken the placebo instead of the active treatment and has reported an improvement in symptoms. Belief in a treatment may be enough to change the course of a person's physical illness. So what this means is that in a placebo-controlled test or experiment or something, they will give someone basically a fake pill. It's just made of sugar It doesn't have any medicine or any healing properties at all. It's a sugar pill. But they'll tell the person that it's the actual medication. And so that person will take these pills and believe that it's the medication. And in some cases, this results in actually some of their symptoms clearing up, them getting better in a certain way. And so what this shows, and as it says here on Better Health, belief in a treatment may be enough to change the course of a person's physical illness. Now, real quick, I want to say, look, I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. Always take your medication. This video is not about, like, there are some spiritualists and New Agers and even like Christian Science or whatever that say don't take meds. No, take your medication. Do what your doctor says, okay? That's not what this video is about. I'm very pro medicine. But what this says here is that belief in a treatment may be enough to change the course of a person's physical illness. Now, here's the important thing, okay? This is important. So if a person believes that that their physical illness is being cured, it will sometimes relieve symptoms. So when people talk about prayer, prayer also causes the placebo effect. If you're praying for healing and you start to feel better, this is the same effect as someone who takes a pill, but there's no active ingredient in it, but they still start to feel better. Now, here's the key. A lot of people, when it comes to prayer or ritual or whatever, will go, oh, that's just the placebo effect. Here's the key thing to understand. Science doesn't understand how the placebo effect works. So saying it's just the placebo effect is kind of like a smokescreen, or it makes it seem like, oh, it's not real, it's all in your mind. Well, yes, it is all in your mind, but you are having the power to create an actual change, and science doesn't understand how this works. So when you say, oh, prayer is just the placebo effect, yes, when you pray to God, it is not God that is causing something to happen. It is the belief one has that a change is going to occur, and then so that change occurs based on one's belief and one's own mind's power to be able to have an effect in some way. So just like someone believes in the healing properties of God's will or God's miracle, is like someone who believes that the sugar pill has an active ingredient that's going to heal them. And so a change occurs. And even on this website, it says, how do placebos work? And it says it's still not known exactly how the placebo effect works. There's theories out there that attempt to explain it, but it's not known how the placebo effect works. So that's very important. If anyone just goes like, oh, that's placebo, placebo is real and placebo is powerful, and placebo is not understood by materialist explanations. So real quick, just something that I think is kind of interesting is that some other things that help the placebo effect work is that if the pill looks real, the person taking it is more likely to believe that it contains an active medicine. Research also shows that the larger the size of the pills suggests a stronger dose than smaller pills, and taking 2 pills appear to be more potent than swallowing just 1. And generally, injections have a more powerful placebo effect than pills. So isn't that interesting? So it's really based on, if someone's taking more pills, they might believe, oh, wow, this is going to affect me more. Or if they're having an injection, they might be more apt to believe that it's going to be more effective. And it also says, if the person expects the treatment to work, the chances of a placebo effect are higher. So if someone thinks that it's going to work, it's going to be higher. But placebos can still work even if the person is skeptical. The power of suggestion is at work here. And also the doctor-patient relationship. If the person trusts their healthcare practitioner, they're more likely to believe that the placebo will work. There's actually things that people can do, right? You can also, it depends on, and look, this is just a small part, right? We're talking about placebo right now, but we're going to be talking, this gets pretty involved, and we're going to be talking about magic ritual and how it alters the unconscious mind. And also there's some dangers here as well. But one thing I want to talk about as well, having things like, confidence in it working increases the success. The trust in the doctor increases the success. The whether it's an injection or pill or how many pills you're taking. So someone who really thinks it's going to work, who, let's say, takes an injection by a doctor that's very respected and they trust, is going to work a lot more than some shady, sketchy doctor who gives a really weird looking pill to a skeptical person. It can still work on that in that case, but it has a lot higher chance of it working, or at least a higher chance of it working in the case otherwise. So a lot of it has to do as well with the authority. What you can do as well, let's say someone has a headache, right? If someone has a headache, I'm like, oh man, if I have a headache, if you go to that person and go, I'm a healer, I'm very gifted. And if they believe you and you're very confident and you seem like an authority, and you go, oh yes, I'm a healer, I'm going to heal you. And then you put your fingers on their forehead and you gaze intently to their eyes for a few minutes, and maybe you say some things, maybe it doesn't matter. But if you have that authority and the person believes it, sometimes the headache will dissipate. Their perception of the headache will be, and they'll be like, oh wow, you cured me. Now, in that case, did that person actually cure them? No, it's the person's own mind that is having a change, affecting a change in some way. Now, this is mind over matter. So one thing to understand about the placebo effect here, and I've made some notes because this is just really important. Let me see where I... Yes, okay, so this is really important. I just want to throw this out there because not a lot of people are familiar with this. That the placebo effect, it can relieve symptoms, but it can't cure the cause, okay? So this is really important. Placebo effect, what it can do is help. It can reduce pain, it can reduce stress, it can reduce anxiety, it can improve your mood. What it can't do is actually cure or alter the course of disease itself. Like, it can't repair physical damage, it can't eliminate infections or really perform any curative functions. So it can't cure you, but it can reduce symptoms like pain or headache or anxiety or things like this. And that's just really important to understand. A good example of this is if you're missing a finger. Placebo effect can't regrow your finger. It can't repair physical damage. It can't do things like this, but it can relieve, let's say, the pain to some degree. So that's also important to know, that there are limits to the placebo effect. You're not going to be able to pray. Okay, a couple things here. First of all, I just want to remind and reiterate again, always do what your doctor says. Okay, that has nothing to do with what this is about today. This is about just explaining the mechanics behind this. Always do what your doctor says. Always listen to your doctor. Always take your medication in the way that you are prescribed. Okay, follow your doctor's advice. Do that. Now, and I just want to be clear about that, because I see a lot of New Agers and spiritualists out there that are saying some very, very dangerous things. And that's not what this is about. Make sure you listen to your doctor. So, okay, so prayer creates the placebo effect. So if someone is praying for healing, what can that do? Well, if they believe in it, they are activating a power in their mind to affect a change. And so if someone is praying for healing, they can actually reduce pain. They can actually reduce anxiety. They can actually relieve certain symptoms to feel a lot better. So in that case, does prayer work? In that case, prayer does work. Yes, but it doesn't work because of God. It works because of the power of your mind. It's your power. You are doing it. The belief in God just serves as a mechanism to get it going, just like the belief in the authority of a doctor and the effectiveness of a pill. That's what kickstarts it. So belief is very powerful. Now, you cannot pray for an arm to regrow. That's not going to work. If prayer could do that, we would be able to document that. Praying is not going to be able to perform some miracle, like, I don't know. Prayer is limited to what that effect is limited to as well. But you see, prayer doesn't just stop there as well. because prayer and the power of the mind is not just limited to the placebo. That's just one aspect of it. Now, if we turn to psychology, what happens is that prayer is actually also very good for implanting unconscious goals. So what I mean by that is that, so we talked about praying for healing or whatever. Well, what about, let's say, praying for success in your job, or making money, or I don't know, completing your workout goals, or finding a partner? What about prayer in that case? Well, guess what? Prayer in that case, it can work as well. But it does not work because you are praying, because God is doing it. It works because you are making an unconscious command embedded within your mind that will direct your life to move more towards those goals that you've set for yourself. So let me look at my notes here. So prayer serves as a mechanism for goal setting. So when people pray for something that they want, like health or a new job or relationship success, right? When they're praying for health, you have the placebo effect. When you're praying for like a new job or having a better relationship, what are you doing? You're setting an intention, setting a goal in your mind. And not only that, but you're implanting that goal into your unconscious mind. And the unconscious mind is extremely powerful, which serves as sort of like a program running in the background, constantly reminding you. So what I mean by that is, let's say that you fight with your partner a lot. If you don't pray or work on it in any way, let's say you don't work on it in any way, right? You're doing no work whatsoever. You're going to keep getting into fights with your partner. So let's say now you introduce prayer. You pray that, oh, I really want to work things out with my partner. I want to be more loving. I want to be more kind. Well, guess what you're doing? You're setting a goal for yourself. You're setting an intention, and you're telling your unconscious mind, hey, this is something important to me. Hey, and you're doing this over and over and over and over again. So guess what? Your relationship's probably going to improve because it's now a goal that's been set, and your unconscious has flagged it as important. If you want an example of how this works, if you're someone who doesn't really remember your dreams, guess what you do? Get a dream journal, and in your dream journal, record your dreams. And not only record your dreams, before you go to sleep at night, think in your mind, I will remember my dreams. I will remember my dreams. I will remember my dreams. If you don't have any dreams, write in your dream journal, I will remember my dream. Do this, your unconscious will start to realize, oh, this is important. You'll start to have more vivid dreams. You'll start to have more frequent dreams. That's just one example. That's just one that's like sort of one that you can kind of experiment with. But there are many, many examples of setting unconscious goals that then affect your life. So yes, if you pray for relationship success, if you pray for getting a raise at work, this can work because what you're doing is you're setting a goal for yourself repeatedly, and you're telling yourself that it's important. So you're going to start working towards that. So again, where is this power coming from? This power is coming from you. But God is serving as this catalyst or this mechanism for the placebo effect for one to believe that it's going to happen. And it can also help with the reinforcement of the power of flagging that unconscious request as being important. Now, here's some interesting things though. Looking at the prayer's relationship to magic and ritual, esoterica, and the occult. Prayer is actually a very weak form of magic. Magic is much more powerful than prayer. The reason why, well, we'll get into the reason why in a minute, but I just want to say real quick before we do, the irony in the fact that religious people, or religion in general, or Christianity in general, very often condemns the practice of magic, the practice of the occult, the practice of ritual, when prayer is magic. Prayer is ritual. Prayer is exactly the same, not exactly the same, but a type of magic. And think about the Eucharist. When one takes communion at church, what are you doing? You're doing a ritual. You're actually doing a very, very strange ritual. You're consuming the blood and the flesh of the Savior who was the sacrifice. So think about that. Christianity they have ritual and magic embedded in it with prayer. And not only that, but they engage in a ritual every time they engage in communion that's based on sacrifice and consuming the blood and the flesh of a sacrifice. So just think about that. We normalize things because we just hear about it over and over and over again, and so it just becomes natural and normal. But think about that. You have a system that condemns ritual, that condemns all this, yet they engage in ritual when they pray, they engage in magic when they pray, and they engage in constantly in a ritual of consuming the blood and flesh of a sacrifice Savior. So, it's very hypocritical for condemnation to come from the church. But anyway, let's continue here and look at why magic is a more powerful, more empowering form, or really prayer is a weak form of magic. Now, let's take a look at why this is. So here's the danger when it comes to prayer, because there's a very big danger when it comes to prayer. Prayer removes power from you. You remove power from yourself and you give it to God. You give it to a spirit. You give it to a deity. You are praying, oh, please, God. You are begging for something to happen. You've stripped your power. This is what we call power self-projection in the Neogenian system of interstar actualization. You are now power self-projecting. You've taken your power, you've projected onto something external, and now you worship that thing or you pray to that thing. Power self-projection happens all the time in society. It happens when someone becomes obsessed with a celebrity or a politician or a religious leader, when someone is just worshiping another. And it's fine to admire people. Admiring people's fine. Having someone that you want to emulate or aspire to or whatever, that's fine. That's fine. But when you're, because you're working on yourself. But when you are just become a blind follower or just worship another individual, you've given up your power, projected onto someone else, and now are making that an object of fascination rather than having it actualize in yourself. So praying to God results in this. You take your power and you give it away. You project it on something else, and so it's gone. It's given to another. So that's a big danger in prayer. You've given up your power. You are now subject to this deity's laws. You are subject to this deity's will. You have given up your will, you've given up your power, and you are in a state of begging. I beg this deity for X, Y, and Z, and now I have to conform to the rules and the laws this deity has given me. Now, this deity doesn't actually exist. It's a fabrication, but in your mind, it exists. And so you have bound yourself. You have engaged in a magic ritual where now you have been bound by a deity. So this is a very big danger in prayer, and why it's a dangerous form of magic. You have now been bound by a deity, and you are now in the subjugated position of having to adhere to this deity's rules and laws as you beg for these things to happen. Now remember, none of this actually, there's not actually a deity out there. There's no actual metaphysical force binding you to anything, but your mind is powerful and it makes that happen. You have engaged. This is an act of magic. When one really understands what magic is, it's not like, it's just basically advanced psychology. So, and that's what a lot of people misunderstand about magic. They think it's about floating around and summoning demons and changing metal into gold, or I don't know, all this crazy stuff. Smiting your enemies by summoning a demon to all this. It's not about any of that. It's about understanding how to transform reality according to one's will. And one should understand very lucidly, the more one understands how reality works, the better. The problem with magic, though, is that magic practitioners often get lost in an intuitive haze and don't properly have an understanding of what reality is, and then they kind of start to lose their minds. They kind of go crazy. Going crazy, and they can no longer separate fact from fiction. They can't tell what's real from what's not real. This is what happens when one engages in an intuitive haze and is not grounded in reason. We need both intuition and reason. And this is why when we're done talking about magic, I'm going to talk a little about will forming. Will forming is what we do as Neogenians in order to have reality conform to our will, to manifest things, to will form things. And this is the most optimized way to do this, without having the pitfalls that one can run into doing it these other ways. But so one aspect of prayer that's dangerous, you've power self-projected, you've now become bound to a deity and subject to their laws, as you are now in a subjugated position of begging. What else does it do? It removes your personal responsibility. It removes your free will. Removes personal responsibility and free will. And a lot of people, guess what? They like this. People don't actually like responsibilities, and people don't like free will. Why? Because it comes with anxiety. If you have free will, you have to choose. And choosing yourself comes with the possibility of making the wrong choice. And if you make that wrong choice, it's on you. People say they want freedom. Most people don't actually want freedom. Freedom's a great thing, but freedom is not actually what people want, because freedom comes with anxiety. What would they rather do? Pray to God to give them a sign, or read the Bible to figure out what to do. So you've given up freedom, and you've given up personal responsibility as well, because, oh, I can't, it's not my fault. That's what the Bible says, or that's what God told me to do. So you give up personal responsibility, you give up free choice. Now, another, so it's very, very limiting. See, just more concepts of being bound. And this can also, another dangerous thing is it leads to people thinking that prayer can do more than it can. Like there's certain sects of Christianity that won't take medical care because they believe, oh, I have to have faith that God will heal me. And so that's that's extremely dangerous. You should always listen to your doctors. You should always take your medication. And so that's another big danger of prayer, is it can lead one into a delusion. You're in that delusional realm. You're deluded. So let's talk a little bit about magic. Now, magic is prayer is a weak form of magic. Magic is different. In magic, now there are, of course, I'm going to have to generalize here because there's so many different types of magic. There's so many different ways of doing magic. But I'm going to come from the most empowering form of magic and a generalized empowering form of magic. That's where I'm going to come from. So it doesn't apply to all magic. There's some magic out there that's absolutely awful and terrible. But in general, magic, whereas prayer emphasizes the power and the will of another deity, magic emphasizes the power and the will of the practitioner. So whereas in magic you're giving up power to another deity, generally in magic, in an empowered positive form of magic, you are embracing yourself. It emphasizes the power of the practitioner, the magician, and when you are doing magic, see the difference is here, when you're working with entities, spirits, whatever you want to call them, when you're working with the spirit, you are not bound and you are not begging that spirit. You yourself are binding that spirit. You yourself are commanding that spirit by your will. You are summoning and commanding a spirit to do a certain thing. You aren't begging and groveling. You're not like, oh, please do this, please, please, It's not, oh, please, Raphael, oh, please, Michael. No, it's at my right hand, Michael. Before me, Raphael. Behind me, Uriel. You are commanding. You are bringing these forces forward. You are the magician at the center of the circle. Everything revolves around you. You are the center of power. You are the focal point. You are commanding and bringing forth. So magic in this form. Now there's forms that can be bad, but in the kind I'm talking about right now, much more powerful, much more positive than prayer. You are not begging. You are not binded. You are commanding and bringing forth. It is by your will that you are commanding these forces. Now, of course, again, these aren't things that actually exist. These Michael, Raphael, Uriel, Gabriel, and just one example of working with archangels and a certain ritual, the LBRP. these represent aspects of your unconscious. Now, not all magicians know this, of course, but that's what is happening. So Mikhail can represent like will and power, whereas Raphael is more like intuition. And you have all these different forces, all these different angels that represent things like being grounded in physical reality. The power of intuition, the power of reason, the power of will. And so when you are conjuring forth these entities, what you're really doing is you're balancing your psyche. So it's not about actually commanding. And magicians who are very advanced know this. A lot of magicians don't know this. A lot of people who are just getting into magic don't know this. They think that these entities are actually real or whatever, but it still has that unconscious effect, just like prayer has that unconscious effect. Except this time you're not being bound, so both of them are unconscious for those who don't know what's happening. But one is empowering. Even if you don't know what's happening, you are still summoning and commanding, and you are at the center of the circle. You are at the center of the pentagram. For about you flames the six-rayed star. It's all you serve as a focal point of the universe and represent the universe in microcosm. So it's very empowering, very powerful. So I'm just looking at my notes here. In prayer, you're begging for a request. In magic, you're commanding by your will. So both prayer and magic are about setting intentions. In prayer, it's like a request, and in magic, it might be cast. So you might be praying for some kind of help or guidance, and in magic, you might be casting a spell with a certain desired outcome. But see, if you're casting a spell with a desired outcome, it's not like the actual spell is going to make it work. It's that it's causing you to have those unconscious drives be activated in your mind. And the same thing happens in magic ritual. Just like in placebo, where it's like, 2 pills is more effective than 1 pill, and an injection is more important than the pill. The credibility of the doctor is important. So same thing with magic ritual. If you're casting a spell, usually like the more complicated the spell is, because it seems like it's going to work more if it's more complex. But that's not it as well. Even the more complex the spell is as well, it's not just the fact that its complexity increases your belief in it, but it's that it also, the more complex it is, the more it's being ingrained in your unconscious mind. It's kind of like writing something down over and over and over and over. If you write something down one time, you might forget it. If you write it down 100 times, you're way more likely to remember it. So same sort of thing if you're doing a spell to have a better relationship or get a raise at work or whatever. By the way, there's a lot of more important things in magic that you can do than just like love and jobs. But I just say that because that's usually what most people are doing, which is really, that's another point of contention in mine as well, is that a lot of people use magic for selfish reasons. And then you can start engaging in black magic, which is magic that ultimately hurts the collective and it's for your own benefit. But that's not really what this is really about. But just as a side note, something that's a little frustrating for me is that magic is about transforming the world. Magic is about cultivating, becoming a master of the universe and creating a better world for all of us. That's what magic is about. It's about transforming the world, tapping in your power to transform your world, transform yourself, transform the people around you. And if you're doing it the healthy way, it's to increase your own actualization, those that you care for, and the world at large. And so many people just get into magic because, they want like money and success. And that's not what it's about. That's not what it's about at all. And the ironic thing is that if you really understand magic to the point where you're working with it very well, you realize that that is not what it's about, unless you have misunderstood what reality is truly about. And we're not really going to get into that today, but that's when you have the problem like the rich billionaire elite who use their will to create a world where everyone is subject to them and they are the ones reaping the rewards. So the billionaire elite are a good example of those who are using their will to keep the world in a negative state, where that's the opposite of what one should be doing. Anyway, I'm getting a little sidetracked. That's not the point. If you guys want to hear me talk about that, let me know in the comments. I can do more videos on, I don't really, if you want to hear more videos on magic, let me know. But anyway, you can see that there are a lot of similarities between prayer and magic, but very big differences as well. Magic is much more empowering. Magic is much more healthy if there are very bad forms of magic. So I'm talking about a healthy version, like I said. Now, what are some downsides of magic? Well, some downsides of magic is it keeps one in a delusion. So magic tends to be extremely intuitive and not well grounded in reason. And so magic practitioners often have a hard time telling the difference between fiction and reality, and they can start believing in some really out there things. And ultimately, this weakens the magic, because now you're doing things that are trying to do things that are impossible, or it's not working well. Your mind is not in an optimal state because you're not seeing reality accurately or clearly. So in that sense, it still strips one of one's power. There's also a lot of beliefs in magic that, if misunderstood, can strip you of your power. So for example, if one is constantly, let's say, checking horoscopes or their charts in order to make like decisions, you're giving your freedom away. It's like praying to a god to tell you what to do. So doing that is really negative. If you start judging people like, oh, I don't hang out with them because they're a Sagittarius or something like this, or they're a Scorpio, this really starts to create a system of prejudice. So there are things in magic, if misunderstood, which it widely is, leads to a lot of problems of people not being able to tell what's real and what's not real, believing in things that are fiction, and creating sometimes prejudice, as well as stripping away one's freedom. So there are very big dangers in magic. So this is where it comes to our concept, the Neo-Genian concept of will forming. See, as prayer is to magic, will forming is magic is to will forming. So whereas magic is a much healthier version of prayer, or you would say prayer is a weak form of magic, will forming is a version that we use to transform reality according to our will, without all these negative and unhealthy aspects. Now, I'm not going to get into too much because that deserves a video all on its own. But what this involves is synthesizing reason with intuition. The problem with magic is that it's often not grounded in intuition, and so it leads to all these different problems. When one understands what one is truly doing as a will former, as someone who is able to conform reality to their will, you can do so in such a way where you are engaged in your personal power and understanding how to work reality in the most optimal and effective way possible. So with will forming, not only does it come with affecting change, right? You see how all these systems like prayer and magic is about affecting change. Will forming is also about affecting change, but it's about understanding precisely how that operates so you can do it in the most effective, most clear, most powerful way possible. Because when you understand the laws in which these things operate, you are able to become more potent and more powerful. You're not going to be wrapped up in these delusions anymore. You're not going to be doing things that are a waste of time. You're going to be doing things that are as effective and potent as possible to transform things according to your will. And of course, we want to do so our collective will as well, to create a teleocratic planetary civilization. But this entails understanding what reality is, what you are, where you are, and what will is, and the rules and laws by which will operates. When you understand that, that is when you become a powerful force of reality, a true will former. And this is when reality can conform to one's will. We're able to form what we will. Now, if you can understand it, like, It's sort of like the idea where when you understand the mechanism and the way things operate behind it, you are able to do it in such a more powerful way, such a more clear way, such a more lucid way. Because people who just kind of get dropped in here, they don't know what they are, they don't know where they are, they don't know why they are here, they don't know what reality is. You're not going to be able to operate and control things and manifest things and will form things in a way that's optimal, because you're going to be not knowing which way is up or which way is down. You don't really know what reality is about. You don't really know why we're here. You don't really know what's going on. It's sort of like trying to you're like dropped in the middle of a forest and you're trying to find your way out, but you're totally lost. With the way we understand reality, it gives you a map and a compass. So you know a clear direction, you know a clear route, you're not getting lost in the delusion, you're not falling into pits, you're not getting attacked by wild animals, etc. And if you want to see more on that, let me know in the comments, because this is something that I'm going to be talking about a lot. It's very important. So real quick, what I want to say is, we talked a lot about prayer and magic and things like this. I want to remind you all that the Neo-Genian system is all about a synthesis of intuition and reason. And we want to know that we can understand metaphysics rationally, which is our system of meta-rationalism. So when I'm talking about prayer, when I'm talking about magic, remember, this is coming from a point of view of reason. It's coming from a point of view of not believing in, crazy woo-woo stuff. You're not going to be able to make things, you're not actually summoning demons, you're not actually praying to angels or anything like this. It's about understanding how the psyche works, understanding how the mind works, and understanding, and this is very, very important when it comes to will forming, which we didn't talk about much, but understanding the mechanism by which reality operates, understanding that this is a mathematical reality, a reality of frequency, and understanding the laws which govern those frequencies and the laws which govern your will as an eternal Zedic mind as well. So I just want to make that clear, that this isn't any kind of woo-woo stuff. It's about understanding the true laws rationally that operate behind these things, but also incorporating the extremely potent power of intuition as well. Now, also, I just want to remind you again, one more time, just because there's so many New Agers and spiritualists out there saying dangerous things. Always do what your doctor, always talk to your doctor. Oh, none of this is medical advice. Talk to your doctor, take your medication, do what your doctor says, okay? There's a lot of, I'm seeing a lot of New Agers and gurus and spiritualists out there saying some really irresponsible things. So don't listen to that, okay? Be safe, be healthy, be responsible, and embrace your own power. Step into your will. Don't be bound to any spirit. Now, I have a lot more videos on my channel. Check them out. Tell me in the comments what you like. Tell me in the comments what you think. Do you think prayer works? Do you think it doesn't work? What do you think it means? What about magic? Tell me. Tell me in the comments. I want to give a big shout out to everyone who supports on my Patreon. Guess what? We're having a secret members only video right after this, and it's really great. It's about the origin of the universe. How did the universe begin? And we're going to see that both science and religion are wrong. We're going to look at why religion is wrong, why science is wrong when it comes to the Big Bang, and the truth about how reality actually, or how the universe actually did begin. So we have a lot of great videos. I've been noticing in our members only videos, we dive more into the intricacies and details of things, dealing with like quantum mechanics, frequencies, the nature of reality, things like that. So if you're interested in that, definitely check it out. It helps out a lot as well. You can get access to all our members only videos. There's a new members only video every single week by subscribing on Patreon at any tier, or tier 2 or higher on YouTube by hitting the join button right below this video. As always, don't feel pressured to support monetarily. I never want anyone to feel pressured to support monetarily. You don't have to. Only do so if you feel happy about it. Only do so if you feel comfortable about it. Yeah, and there are plenty of free ways you can support, like liking and subscribing and sharing my videos. And for those who do support, I want to say thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So I want to give a shout out to everyone who does, especially Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Angela, DB, Enki, Nucelina, Merlin, Paul Rogers III, and everyone else. Thank you very much.